So let's have a super quick look at this. We've done no prep for this because it only came out a couple of hours ago. But have a look at breaking news at 6 p.m. tonight. One News, whoever Comar Brunton is now. It's not Comar Brunton, it's someone else. But the One News political poll from tonight. Let's go.
Breaking news. The latest One News Varian poll shows National and ACT firmly in the driving seat, 54 days out from the election. And the poll also reveals that Labor's fallen to its lowest numbers in 6 years. Leader Chris Hipkins has also plunged in popularity. National's Christopher Luxon.
I'm interested about these words, and I'm not trying to defend the left here, but they're using words like crashed and plunged and all this. I think News Talk ZB's got a headline story, plummeted, and all this kind of thing as well. I don't know. What would a plummet be? Maybe 3, I mean, I guess 4 points is going to be about, 11%? Maybe it is. No, other way around, 8%. Maybe it is. I'd be interested. It is interesting to know that the words that they choose to put in their scripts and then add in, plummeted, crashed, low, fair enough. Lowest ever is an accurate thing, but the is it an adverb? What's the describing word, or just a verb that they associate with it? Adjective.
Yeah, I mean something like plunged. Like I would say that's like double the normal movement.
I would.
Is it double?
Well, plunged. I think about also jumping off a very high. Like it sounds horrible. You mentioned 9/11. People plunged off the tower. The highest diving board, 15 feet, whatever it is, 12 feet, they plunge off that. So, but I don't know, just a thought, keep going.
Luxon now breathing down his neck. We have extensive coverage this evening and begin with political editor Jessica Much-Mackay.
Hi, Jess.
The exclusive details of our latest poll.
Exclusive.
The 2023 campaign is really heating up. So let's take a look at how the numbers have landed.
Okay.
In our latest One News Varian poll, National is on 37, up 2 from our poll a month ago. Labor has plummeted to the 20s, a big drop of 4. ACT is on 13, up 1. The Greens are on 12, picking up 2. New Zealand First is on 4, nudging at that 5% needed to get back into Parliament. And to Party Māori is steady on 3.
All right, let's pause there for 1 sec, because it does go on, but let's just have a look. Actually, can I go back a smidge? Because I want to see what their ups and downs were as well. The ups and downs. So there we go. So up 2, down 4, up 1, up 2, up 1. It's interesting to know that I think 12% of people didn't respond. That, again, and I'm not saying this to defend Labor, it's not a good poll for Labor, the trend has been downward for sure, that with the worst government there's ever been, according to those on the right telling us that, they're not massively increasing. I mean, they get a majority here, they get a majority in the House there, it's all above board. I'm not questioning the numbers that they've got up there. I was going to say it seems close. It's not close in this poll, but it doesn't seem to be that huge of a disparity between how Luxon and Seymour are talking about Labor and the numbers that Labor's actually. I mean, like, you could flip it and say, well, Labor's at least 2.5 times as good as ACT, if you wanted to look at it that way as well. But we're not trying to defend it. Yeah, bad news, not good news. Any first initial thoughts, Chewy?
Yeah, I had a couple here. Like, I think that this looks like Labor losing it from both ends. Like, the left side is gone to the Greens, the middle has gone to National. The right wing, the guys truly in the middle, have headed over to National. I don't think it's benefited New Zealand First. I don't think it's benefited ACT. I think that's where it's gone. And I think this is, like, it's hard to say that anything that Labor has done in the past couple of months has been inspiring in any sort of way.
Yeah.
And I can't see them learning the lesson in time. We've talked in the past about, their support parties talking about wealth tax, ruled it out.
Yeah.
Shall we do this? Ruled it out. Are we going to do anything about tax? Not really. We are just going to hold the line and hope for the best. And it's it's not
kind
a
of
good
feels like that's kind of what it is. I mean, there's an idea in sport sometimes, like you do it in golf, you do it in cricket. It's called hit and hope. You just swing away and see how where the ball ends up. Hit and hope. And it does feel a little bit like that, because it seems that some of the policies that were popular and have proven to be popular, or have proven to be popular even more so on the left, like the capital gains tax, wealth tax, they're moving away from, which means the left is kind of going, and there's no one else being inspired by them. I mean, people are still saying wait till the debates. You know, when you put Chippy up against Luxon in the debates, it'll be a different story. But there gets to a point. It's like, I mean, sorry for a second sporting analogy in one thing, but once they're far enough ahead, once the team are far enough ahead, if you have a bad last quarter of the game, there's not enough time to catch up.
Yeah, so look, I think the debates are great for people like us, because it's blood sport, right? But what about the vast majority of people who just look at the polls?
Yeah.
And like I've seen so many comments this week, right, of just the sheer weight of national and ACT billboards that are out there. Now, I'm not suggesting that people make up their mind on billboards, but when they're everywhere,
yeah,
like it's a pretty stark difference. Like I've started seeing national ads on YouTube and stuff like that. The war chest that National and ACT have between them, like I saw someone saying that those two parties have 5 times the financial resources from fundraising than anyone on the left. That their messaging is pretty consistent in the media. Their advertising is everywhere. As we've discussed, you know, the language is plummeting, death spiral, you know, breathing down the neck of, all of that sort of thing. I think that stuff, for the majority of people that don't follow this day to day and all of that sort of stuff, it just ties into what we've spoken to before. It's a foregone conclusion. I don't need to vote, or I want to vote for the winning team, so I'm going to.
Yeah, it goes both ways though, actually. And look, this is we're already tangenting for our 3-minute story to go well beyond it. Because people may look at the National ACT numbers there and go, well, I don't need to vote. And that might stop people going to the polls from the right. And they might look at Labour, Green, and goes, there's no point in me voting. I don't know which is a stronger pull, but I think it's fair to say that the right is typically better organised than the left when it comes to turning up the polls. So that's that. Here's a question for you. I think it's more marked in America, as in more obvious in America, but people voting against their self-interest. Now, I think
I was just going to say this. Yeah,
I think it's more obvious in America because you've got sort of Dave Chappelle refers to them as the dusty whites, basically lower socioeconomic, the poorest, uneducated people in rural America being white, voting for a billionaire who is giving tax cuts to the wealthiest people and not helping in any areas like free healthcare or anything like that. It's a bit different in New Zealand because, not to play too much of a racial card, but that dusty white people in America is filled by lovely brown people in New Zealand. So they're not the people who are voting for ACT and National necessarily anyway, certainly not en masse. But is there a sector of the right that are voting against their own self-interest? And why are they doing it? Is it because they just hate Jacinda still so much that even if I vote against my own self-interest, let's say financially on this side, it's still worth it in their books? Or is it all about those evangelicals and it comes to we want to have an evangelical in and the only thing that matters is abortion?
Yeah, well, we all know that Twitter's not real life, but
what?
look at your replies today, people talking about communism. You know, and every time I see that, it's like, oh, we're going to get rid of these communists. It's like, pick up a book and find out what communism actually is, because no. Or even like quite hard out socialism. No, nobody's really doing it here. We have soft, friendly socialism, and we always will, because even National know not to fuck with that too much. But yeah, when you say people voting against their own self-interest, here's the thing. Are you voting for National? Do you make more than $170,000 individually per year? Do you have teeth in your head? Do your children have teeth in their head? And you're still voting for National, you are voting against your own self-interest.
Maybe it's not quite so obvious in New Zealand. Like we talked about the American situation, you know, we've all seen documentaries about how people, you know, had to pick which finger they were going to save and which they were going to let be cut off because they didn't have enough money to pay for 2 fingers. Because we do have that safety net and that sort of thing in New Zealand. Maybe voting against your own self-interest in New Zealand, you know, affects you 5%. Whereas voting against your own self-interest in America affects you 50%. So maybe they don't feel it quite so much. So it's not quite such the same consideration. I don't know.
And I mean, as far as people donating to political parties, who knew that in a cost of living crisis, where the ordinary people are having to tighten their belts, that the parties that represent those people haven't got enough money compared to the parties that are representing the millionaires and the big business owners and that sort of thing, who have managed to increase their profits, even though the rest of us are doing it really tough.
Yeah.
Like I saw one today that, what was it? Simeon Brown was saying that, you know what would be better for what would be a better service than regional rail? Intercity bus. Intercity buses made an enormous donation to National. It's like you don't even have to dig very far to see where National's compromised. But this shit is working. Their messaging is working.
Yeah.
People get to a stage where you have 2 terms of a government and it's like, well, there's some things that piss me off. It's time to let the other guys in, even if it's going to hurt them.
There is a French philosopher, we could probably Google this and get the exact quote, but there's a French philosopher from like the 1800s whose quote is translated into something like, we get the government that we deserve. Right? The government you get is the government you deserve. The government you vote in is the government you deserve. And I just wonder, 12 months from now, if we're under a National Act government, it's a bit like, there was remorse the day after Brexit, because people are like, what? I was only doing it as a protest. This is going to make a difference. I wonder if in 12 months from the election, if there will be a bunch of regret, whatever the election thing is for these guys, or if people will be happy with who they've got because, we get the government that we deserve as we vote them in.
I mean, there's so many examples of exactly what we're talking about, right? Brexit is a great one. Trump is the other. Lots of people voted for Trump thinking he was their man. And exactly as we've been talking about with Winston, he doesn't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about you. It doesn't matter if you've decided to vote for National for a bit of change. You didn't give them $500,000. They're not going to give a shit about what you care about in any more than a passing way. You don't put $500,000 on the barrel and not expect something in return.
Yeah, and look, if people didn't see our chat with Sanjana Hatatua on Friday night, it was a pre-record, but it was a conversation. You should have a look at it. One of the points that came out of that when I was being all sort of trying to figure things out and trying to work out what was going on about, when Winston Peters says this and he says this, and Sanjana just said, yeah, but he doesn't believe that. And I'm like, oh no, I'm aware of that. And that's what we're trying to say. But the thing is, he doesn't believe it. And the evidence of him not believing that bullshit around bathrooms and stuff is the philosophy that he puts out is going to stop, 6-month-old boys from going into the women's room with their mothers. I mean, literally to the letter of the law, it would stop that. So he hasn't thought it out. It's just all, I don't like the term populist because it implies popular, and that implies to me majority rule a little bit. It's not, it doesn't have to be majority to be popular, but it is what it is. It is what it is. That, if people want to look it up, that French philosopher was Joseph de Maistre. Maistre is the guy. Joseph de Maistre is the guy that kind of. And I think Thomas Jefferson said something similar.
Yeah, he did. I think we had Matthew Hooton giving Chippy some advice, and I think we can pretty much rule out that he's going to take that. But I do wonder if someone's like looking at this and going, "What we're doing is not working. Do we stay the course?" Or do we do some quite dramatic changes? And it's just like they've made promises. If they change course now, they'll get lashed for flip-flopping, and can you really trust them? So I think they're locked in. And it's just, for a lefty like myself, it's just so uninspiring. There's nothing there for me.
Yeah.
Like, and when I say for me to care about, not necessarily for me. Like, I know as a middle-income, middle-aged white guy with no kids, generally there isn't much in the pot for me anyway, from either party. If I was talking about things that would benefit me directly, it's all solidly green.
Yeah.
And I'm of the mind that those things would benefit more people than anything else the other parties are offering. So at this stage, that is very clear. That's where I'm going.
Yep. Here's the guy, Joseph de Maistre. And I highlighted his quote down here. So I'm not going to try and speak French because I can't. But it's every nation gets a government it deserves.
Oh, I can do that in French. Oh, baguette.
Toute nation et le gouvernement quel something or other else. English transversion, several variations, including every country has the government it deserves, and in a democracy, people get the leaders they deserve. The quote is popularly misattributed to well-known commenters such as Alexei Do something or other and Abraham Lincoln. So there you go. That's the dude I was thinking of. All right, let's
I mean,
play some
that's
more.
definitely what I'll be screaming from the rooftops.
Yeah, you fucking deserve this, you pricks.
Yep.
Something like that.
You bunch of bastards. Literally from the street every morning until...
Yeah, let's keep going with the
out.
story, seeing we're currently 23 minutes in and 55 seconds into the clip. Here we go.
I told people what was going on.
Let's take a look at some of the other parties that are making an appearance. Freedom's New Zealand is steady on 1. The Opportunities Party has dipped to 1, and Legalised Cannabis is now registering on 1. The number of people who don't know how they'll vote is 12%.
Right,
not enough, and they'd be warming the opposition.
So the other thing about this whole situation is the preferred prime ministership. And let's just have a look at what it came out today. People are talking about, how well Luxon's doing now. That's a bit of a stretch, but let's have a look.
Now let's bring up the preferred prime minister numbers, and the gap between the top two is narrowing.
So again, downward 3%, right? Downward trend.
Chris Hipkins is on 21, dropping 3 since last month. Christopher Luxon is just behind on 20, so 1 percentage point in it.
So basically, Christopher Luxon is still not exciting the place. And like I've been saying for a long time, that it appears to me, and from my readings and listenings to commentators and stuff out there, people much wiser than me, is that if you're not preferred prime minister, it's very hard to win an election. He nearly is preferred prime minister, but not based around his performance, but based around people moving away from Chippy or away from Labour altogether. So will he become preferred prime minister in this poll? Perhaps. Will he become it because people are inspired and want him to lead the country? Doesn't look like it. But it's still, if Chippy drops 2 points and next time it's 20-19, then he's leading the preferred prime minister polls. Chewy.
Yeah, look, I think Christopher Luxon's been perfectly clear. I don't know. I don't have any other statement to follow that. I think you're exactly right. There's nothing there to say. Like even the term preferred prime minister, right? It's not really reflected. I think if I was Chris Hipkins, the term, here's my sporting analogy for tonight.
Woo-hoo.
The race is yours to lose.
Yeah.
And I think Hipkins is losing that. He's hemorrhaging preferred prime minister points because he's not doing anything inspiring.
Yeah, he's not looking to be a prime minister. We're not looking to him and go lead our country, please.
God, that was something that Jacinda was just really good at.
Yeah.
That emotive follow me into the future sort of stuff was really, really good. And she came across like that. Whereas it just seems like Hipkins is in apologetic mode because it's not working.
Now, before this polling came out...
There's no, take me into the future, Chippy.
Before this polling came out, I wanted to already play two other very short videos. And I think, and I understand him not wanting the job, which is probably the situation, but I have to tell you, and I'll show you some footage of us talking about this before the leadership changed over, New Zealand has the Labour Party leader it deserves, sitting in the wings, who is not the leader. And this is he.
Your superpower is that you are sort of an anti-politician. And it strikes me that is the reason that people are drawn to you, or that you stand out. Do you see that about yourself?
No, I just don't know many big words. I think that's the difference. I love this job. It's an awesome thing to do, a massive privilege. When someone comes into our office in Masterton and they've had a string of bad luck, and we find them a house, or we help them get financial support, or help them with ACC, or just recently I got funding for new trains for the region. That's massive, and that's what I love about this. I don't know why I've stood out. I try not to think about it because it makes me feel uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, I just love playing cricket and hanging out with my family and my mates and doing stuff for my region.
Right. Number one. There's point number one, right? I think he's got the whole likability in spades. Now, when it comes to him being a bit of a straight shooter in policy, part two.
Well, something that the Nats are definitely going to repeal is the Three Waters legislation if they get in. Are we still calling it Three Waters?
It's affordable water now.
Affordable water. Okay, affordable water. Well, they're going to repeal it, aren't they?
I don't believe them.
You don't? Why not? You think they're bluffing?
Oh, I think they're participating in politics. But I don't think that they will, and I'll tell you why, is because they are campaigning as if there's been no changes made. And what they're proposing is the status quo, which the local government sector don't want. We can prove what we're doing will save ratepayers money. They can't, because their policy is the status quo. And every council in the country, bar possibly one or two, have told me that they can't do it by themselves. So there'll be just as much backlash on what they're proposing as there was on our original proposal.
Well, there was a lot of backlash.
But people are comfortable with it now.
But it's been a dog of a process, hasn't it? This all started in 2016. We're in 2023 now.
Oh, well, I love a challenge.
Claire?
So I have to tell you, and without trying to be like yay us, now one of our selections didn't age that well, Michael Wood, but back in the day, me and Simon Wilson were having a chat about this when the leadership was due to be decided, and this is what we said back then.
Actually, you scrolled past Michael Wood to get to Kieran McNulty, but he has been doing some pretty good messaging along those terms.
They're my two choices. Those are the two I came to. I was Kieran's number one, Michael's number two. And if Kieran says no, Michael's number two. But I think, honestly, especially in that provincial kind of cred, gumboot wearing youth. And look, it sounds horrible, but I understand messaging. That's what it is. He's the guy. He's the guy.
There you go. So we've been singing that since the leadership thing was over. And I tell you what, the more I see of him, the more I wish they had of. They didn't. And he won't take a poison chalice now. But it was a mistake to have Chippy in and not have Kieran in. He may not have wanted it, so I guess that's his call. But I just, sliding doors.
You
I
just turn around and
it
you
could
go,
have been
tough.
Yeah.
Tag, you're it. Get in.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to that with a couple of key things that should swing the electorate. His vehicle.
Yeah, it's a beauty, isn't it? A beauty.
You always judge an MP by his electorate vehicle. There you go. That is the vehicle of someone that actually works in the region. It is not a huge, big SUV. It is a fucking old ute. And we cannot talk about him without this one.
Is it a socialism clip?
It
The
bloody
member will withdraw and apologise. Kieran McNulty.
Thank you very much. Right. Yeah, I am a socialist, and I'm proud of it. Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Bring it on. And I'm very proud to say to the good people of Wairarapa, elected a proud socialist as their MP.
Thanks, David Seymour, for your editorial bent on that video. But that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with socialism.
No, let me say as well, apologies. That was, of course, David Slack. I don't know why I said Simon Wilson. I got my brain farted there for a second. But yeah, I just, look, it's pointless having this conversation today, but one wonders. It's a bit like with fucking Trump versus Clinton. One wonders if Bernie had been the nominee, what would have happened. One wonders if they had have actually, if he turned it down, that's all well and good. He's entitled to do that. But if they had have gone a different path, it's just that, no bullshit, speaks a real language, gets in there, with his gumboots on, puts his elbow, but then also comes to policy or political games and he basically goes, yeah, they're bullshitting. Because this is the thing we've been saying about Three Waters the whole time. Yeah, okay, turn Three Waters down, but it's going to cost everyone in your region more. Have you told them that part of the conversation? Oh, you haven't? National, have you told them that? Oh, you haven't? Okay. And if so, of course, they're not going to do it. Of course, they're going to follow through on the Affordable Water Act or whatever it's called now. And everyone will forget the uproar that they had about Three Waters because that was Jacinda and Jacinda bad. But Luxon doing it under a different name, yeah, okay, we'll do that.
I won't forget it, Pat, and I won't forget the fact that if it doesn't go through, I'll tell you why. It's because of fucking racism and politicians buying into that shit and cashing in on it. And this is my huge bugbear with this election cycle is everyone's fucking dialed that up to 9 again. I got a couple of comments I want to put up about Kieran as well. Pursuit 82 says Kieran also isn't associated with the government's COVID response like Chippy was.
Yeah.
I think that is a good point. Like, however you want to say that, his hands are clean. That's neither good nor bad. And DIY Guru makes an excellent point here. The job of the Prime Minister is very demanding. Doesn't leave you much time to do what you're good at.
Yeah.
And I think Chippy's a really good example of this. Is like, I was really happy with the stuff that he did and the stuff that he had profile for beforehand, and then I'm being real critical of him now because I'm not seeing that same guy.
Yeah.
Where's old Chippy? Get him some dirty dogs and a sausage roll and a fucking.
Oh no! Fuck! He has to stop. He has to leave the sausage rolls alone. I'm getting sick of that every single fucking press conference. But it's fair. I like that point because it's a bit like we were talking about your Queen a few weeks ago, and that she's got the freedom to basically roam and do what she wants without having to worry about leadership. So she has the freedom to be an amazingly well-informed MP with lots of data and facts because she doesn't have to worry about leadership. We're talking about Chloe Swarbrick if you're a new joiner to the show.